All right, so I think that we can take a temperature from the group. Since we don't have new business, our next item is open discussion again. And so I will leave it up to you guys. I did prep a few items. What I don't know is how you all are feeling. It's Friday, it's day 3. Do you want to spend more time? Or would you like some of the other, I can tell you what I have are boring topics. And there are more questions about HARP and a few things like that. So I don't know that we have any answers on that. They can certainly become part of the ACOM communities discussions, or we can stay live and have some more open discussions and or just be social. And I will leave it up to feedback from you all, unless ACOM has a different, Jamie, anything else you need us to cover? Paula, anything else that you want us to take care of before we make any decisions here?
I don't really have anything. I'm looking at something that Jamie put in the chat, which is really awesome. Looks like it's an educational info piece for prospective students, or
no, when we talked about the other day, we had talked about the doctors and what they do, the 3rd through 6th grade initiative that we were about to launch. Learning, it's doctors, what they do, health, wellness, and a very, very, very basic intro to osteopathic medicine. We actually launched the site this morning, so I wanted to give you guys a little prod. It's going to be a pilot year this year. We have about 30 of your medical students teaching the program. They're doing a train the trainer session in a couple weeks. We did send this all out to CSA because we think once they become students, they're theirs, but we can certainly share this with you guys, the names of those students as well. It went live this morning, so hopefully we'll take around 100 students during this pilot program this cycle, so feel free to share.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. There's Andrea put in the chat, plans and processes in place. Are you asking about what our ongoing processes might be for the upcoming cycle?
Sorry, no, just about asking whether people have plans or processes in place for transitioning staff back to campus who have been working remotely all year. And I'm sure that will vary campus to campus because we're all in a different hotspot around the country, but we're starting to talk about it here, and I'm just curious how other schools are tackling this.
At Western and both Pomona and Lebanon, we have a COVID response team, and they've led university-wide with all of our 9 colleges on the steps for returning back to campus. So there is they've been working on this for about 6 months, thinking about the possibility of being able to come back on campus. And so far, in August, it's going to be a hybrid curriculum. Part of it's going to be virtual, part of it will be hands-on. That will be. So they've been designed by college, department by department. What our needs are, we've put in plans for social distancing in our offices, traffic flow, and all of those things that are important when you return to campus. So we've been doing it at Western on a department and campus by campus. College by college. Some of our colleges have smaller class sizes have been on campus. For comp, the OMT and the manual medicine classes have been conducted at the Pomona Fairplex. I don't know if any of you had come out to California. We were visiting. We have a fair at California Pomona Fair, and the buildings hold about 3,000 people. Some of the big warehouses, so they've used those to spread out the OMM courses and also the manual medicine courses, and all the precautions are taken. That will probably go on, but we've been doing it by department and by college.
Susan, what about for your staff, for admissions team?
My staff, we were in a small suite. I don't know, Bill, you've been in our offices. We're in a small suite, and we were there. As I said, my new staff, I met them 3 times, and that's when we were conducting interview days. We have some small work areas, and we've been told that maybe stagger our staff so that half of them are there maybe 2 days a week, and the other half are there another 2 days a week, and then we have one distance. And traffic flow, that's another thing that's important. We have two doors into the office, so we'd have to create a traffic flow. We also share that suite with admissions officers from 2 other colleges. So we're thinking about having maybe a half to a third of the staff come in at different times, maybe even different times during the day, and then manage the traffic flow and make sure. We've already put up, we have cubicles sort of like that have pony walls that are about 5 feet tall. We've also put up the clear plexiglass above those to almost to the ceiling. We have a group of staff that work in an area that face each other, so the desks are, they're facing the same way, and some of them are facing each other. We've put in plexiglass to the ceiling there also. We have hand sanitizers. We have specifics where when we go into our office, we wipe down our desk. When we go to lunch and come back, we wipe down our desk. When we leave, we wipe down our desk. There is cleaning staff, but in case anybody else is in the office. Those that have offices, they've said they would like us to have our lunch in the office. They don't want to have more than 2 or 3 people max in our lunchroom to make sure that we're social distancing, keeping a safe distance. And some may even go out and eat in their cars. So we've really drilled down into a lot of things, a lot of planning for admissions. I'll be getting together with the 2 other directors, and we'll probably stagger the attendance so that we have empty workspaces. So we'd be filling every other workspace. And then make sure that the flow of traffic is appropriate, and then make sure that we're wiping down our areas before lunch, after lunch, before we go home, and then make sure that people are distancing. Our stalls in the restrooms, every other stall also is available. So they've done that. They've done in that area also. So they've really thought ahead and planned ahead for when we return.
I could add, I just put something in chat. This is not us, mind you, but the California State University system announced yesterday that they will not be requiring COVID vaccinations of their student body, and they will be moving towards in-person instruction beginning this year. For TUC, our deans apparently met yesterday afternoon to discuss more in depth what fall looks like. From what I'm hearing, it looks like we're going to continue a hybrid approach, and nobody's willing to commit to moving people on campus to work regularly yet. So we'll see. I think some of it has to do with the fact that California is still in various tiers of restriction due to COVID, and I think our administrators are taking a very cautious approach, because we've gone back and forth as a county and as a state over the last year. So
we were told that we couldn't mandate that our students have the vaccination because of the trial phase of the vaccination is in, because it was the time to get it out, and it didn't go through all of the process stages that they need to. So for that reason, we can't mandate it. So we are offering it to our entering students and of course staff and our current students, but we were told we cannot mandate it.
We were told that we probably can't require it. So we're using the term strongly recommend, and we're trying to identify the people who can't take it, meaning at least with the staff and faculty who can't, for either religious or health reasons and so forth, so that they can have special accommodations. It gets kind of tricky for us too, because we have 4 different states. So we want to try to be consistent among our campuses. And I think PCUM might have, a similar situation. One state might have certain requirements, and, have another state has that, and you want to try to be consistent. So we're trying to balance that out too.
That speaks to HIPAA, so we won't know who has been vaccinated and who has not been vaccinated. We are reporting it to the state and to our student employee health office. But it is confidential. So everyone, whether they've been immunized or not, are going to have to follow the same procedures when we're on campus.
I think one way, not to try to get around the, HIPAA and so forth, but if you're going to require people to come back to work, they might have to disclose why they're looking for an exception, and that might, that
Yeah, we're starting
might
to
require them to identify or self-identify why.
Well, we're not, what our provost just said is if you can work from home, stay at home, definitely. So they're not requiring anybody to go back to campus in the fall. The colleges, more so than admissions, need to be, staff need to, and faculty need to be on campus. But our provost just said, if you can continue to work from home, then work from home, and you can continue to conduct business as you have in the past. And when it's feasible, then they'll start bringing people back slowly. So I'm not sure how long that process will take, but they're going to be starting that in August.
At PCOM, we're rocking all the rules, meaning every possible option that we can offer. We're going to do the telework. We're going to do some time in the office, some time away, because what we know is that even though we're vaccinated, there's still that 5%. And this is just kind of taking care and putting safety first with us, because we're the engine. If we're not running, there's not many people we can sub in besides other campuses. So I am sure, my team can testify. We are working to make it to work so that people are not coming in feeling afraid. So we're going to be smart and continue to follow the current protocols, which include, social distancing, the masks, all the things that you've heard, but we're also being using common sense. So everybody can't come in, because if we do, then we could just wipe out the whole team, right? And then we're also not going to bring anybody on campus without getting permission from the rest of the people who are already in the environment. So we set up some team meetings with each of the campuses for the first program that's going to offer some small campus interviews. That's going to be pharmacy down in Georgia. And we also are offering our own vaccination clinics and encouraging people to think about the life behind the science. And we just hosted an event last night in South Georgia. And I remember one of the professors saying, if you're thinking about the vaccine, you'd be limited on what you could do as a student to go out in your rotations. You're taking care of your classmates, you're protecting yourself. So still using that common sense and encouraging people to really research and understand what the vaccine is for and how it can protect them and others. And so that's kind of the same philosophy. And then I decided to get out of the way so that the team can make their decisions. And then if there's somebody that's really got issues or concerns, we could talk those out either between Title IX and HR. The whole idea is staying engaged. I don't know if you saw my post in LinkedIn. Carrie sent me a photo of her working yesterday from inside her Volkswagen Bug, her Volkswagen van. And I said, I love it when my team thinks outside the box, because, it's work from anywhere. And I threw that out there. I think when I was talking a couple of days ago that we still have some people who are very concerned about trusting their staff to work. And I don't really feel like that's the kind of issues that we're going through, but some of the decisions are made around a couple of things. And so I want to throw this out, and then I promise I'll be quiet. You have to understand where your president is, right? So I speak with our president weekly, and the executives believe that the campus is central, even though if you went to the last Carnegie Dartlet presentation, they showed the Blockbuster building, and they were like, stop, if you're selling this, you're not with the times. So if you're just trying to get people to come see your campus, it's more than that. So facilities don't necessarily rate high, but what you and I know is what someone mentioned yesterday was the office noise that we miss so much. That is critical to it's germane to how we interact with each other. So we're going to still try to drum up some fun if we have to close our doors and wear our face masks to be safe, but and we'll have to talk about egress and ingress, but we have been assured that the students from the outside, the prospective students, are going to be the last group that we would bring to campus once we figure it out. So the campus has committed to a May 3rd return for us and a June 1 or June 3rd, I think, for the students as they open up the fall term. And we're moving some students also into our first residence hall that's on campus in May as well. So I threw the article into the chat. I think there's some interesting things to think about. And I mentioned, I said you can't unsee the pandemic, and we shouldn't lose all the lessons that we learned. We're an amazing group. We can work from anywhere, we can get it done. And that has to be something when I talk to our president, I say all the time, we got incredible people that are committed and they're working like crazy hours. We're overproductive. And so I have to keep thinking about ways to protect that development and also to encourage that creativity, because it won't, and then I really do, I promise, I want to return our home back to the place where we just go home and not just work out of it all the time. That can be a drag too. So we're learning to just cut it off at the end of the night. They're also getting on the email and telling me to shut it down. So I'm trying to also provide a good example, but I would say check out the article I put in there. There was some good stuff that makes for a good conversation.
All right, thank you, everybody. That was a great plug to put out there, Andrea. You stirred it up. Jamie, are you working on a poll yet?
Jessica, did you complete? I think we were a little, we didn't know exactly what we wanted to put in the poll because Bill had asked for some information. So do we want to know if it's required for the vaccine for your students? Do we want to know if it's required, strongly recommended, or don't know, or not required? Like, what are the options you want in that poll?
And Jamie, I think it'd be helpful, at least from our perspective, if there's a requirement for people who are visitors coming to campus. I'm thinking specifically of prospective students for open houses or interviews. Are we going to be asking? I know a conference that I had received an invitation to. You have to show proof that you've been vaccinated to be able to attend in person. I don't know if schools are, I'm not even sure what the legalities are, but does anybody have any ideas on what they're going to do if they are going to bring prospective students on campus? And some of us already are related to tours or other things like that.
Okay, so just for the straw poll sake, we'll do one for students, one for visitors, and one for faculty and staff, and have the same questions, which is required, strongly recommended, not required, or don't know. Just in terms of if we're trying to do this during this presentation, we don't want to make this like a long thought out.
That sounds wonderful.
I just can't imagine for us that we would be welcoming any visitors on campus until it's absolutely safe for students, staff, and faculty to be on campus. I just don't see that happening. Yeah.
One of our campuses is having an in-person open house, and we're doing some tours and so forth. So it'd be interesting to hear what other people are thinking along those lines, if anyone else is doing that.
There's an application that we have to fill out and send to the CRT, and distancing, maintain distancing, safety precautions, testing, temperature taking, things like that when they're coming on campus.
So we just need to, put like for medical students, vaccination required.
The question is, are you requiring
Jamie, you're not muted.
COVID-19 vaccine and sorry, hold on.
Jamie, you're not muted.
So this just came up at our school yesterday because one of the students who's been accepted had seen that our parent institution is allowing small groups of visitors. They're allowing, I think they have 1 day a week, and they allow up to 10 prospective students with one guest, so 20 people. And we have an app that you complete before you come onto campus where you're self-identifying your temperature, whether or not you've tested positive, if you've been around anybody who tests positive. And you fill out that app, and then that you get a green light or, check mark saying you can enter campus. And then to get onto campus, you have to show that. And then they take your temperature again. So my concern is we're a large class, and if I open up to every accepted student and say, yeah, you can come and visit, that I don't think I can keep it to 10 unless I'm doing it every day, and my staff isn't back every day. So we're kind of grappling with how to handle this, because our parent institution is allowing visitors, the NYIT at large, but the medical school is in its own little kind of section of campus, and we haven't been. And the other interesting thing that they're saying is that they're limiting the number of buildings that are open and they're showing. And as you know, a large campus, you could show things and showcase things on a large campus, and you may walk through a few buildings, but our medical school is 3 little buildings. And, what are you coming to see? If I can't bring you into the anatomy lab, then what, you to come and look at 3 buildings? And you make this whole productive visit and protracted, app that you have to complete to come stand on campus and stand in the middle of 3 buildings and look at them. So I don't know how this is going to go, but we're in the middle of dealing with this at the moment. So it's very timely that we should be discussing this.
Sounds like we might be the outlier, but we're offering accepted students the opportunity to come on certain Saturdays for a tour, and it's very small groups and socially distanced, with masks and lots of sanitizer and things like that. But we thought that it was important to allow them to come on campus, and they do walk through. We even do a small demonstration in our sim center. And have someone talk to them about OMM, but they're very small groups, like 8 people.
I knew you were nonconformist at heart, Bill. I just knew it.
No, we're just in the South. No, seriously though. I think a big difference is the region of the country that you're in and what people's expectations are, because we see even a difference between campuses and states.
No, agreed. It's certainly geography plays a role, population plays a role, test cases play a role, everything plays a role. And if you're in more, and not some of your campuses aren't though, if you're in more rural areas, you have a little bit more space, you can do stuff. I just, on our campus, they've just been very cautious. I think there's a hope that we'll be able to facilitate some type of on-campus visit maybe in July for accepted students before they come in, but it's right now it's just a hope. It doesn't look like it's going to happen.
And doing it on Saturday means that there are very few current students on campus, especially if you choose a certain time. So there are a number of things you can do to minimize it, but I'm not trying to push it on anybody, just kind of reporting.
We have 9 campuses in our nine colleges on our campus, and Bill, you've been there, so we have a small area, and it's busy on weekends also. There's always something happening on our campus. We have a large class size too, and that's going to be trying to figure out how we can accommodate that many people in small groups because of the distancing. And anybody that's given a tour, even if 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, keeping them distant, keeping them 6 feet apart, that would, it's impossible to do that. People just start gathering together and chatting. So it's going to be difficult for us. Some of our smaller colleges that have way fewer students enrolled, they're able to do that. But for us, I'm not sure how we're going to be able to do that. They're talking about tours, virtual tours, student-led tours that they're videotaping and scripting of our buildings and labs and things like that, so that we can post those also. But it'll be difficult for us to invite students to campus. We want to do it during the summertime before they start, but we'll have to see how that works out.
And I think because we did it a little bit earlier and we're able to spread it out a little bit, we also found, there were just a number of students who didn't take us up on it. So it was more manageable than you think. It wasn't like everybody, it wasn't like 150 people all wanted to come in a short period of time.
Yeah, with our school, we were just told yesterday that we need to start planning for some on-campus accepted student days, and we've not even transitioned back to campus yet. We were originally told that we would be back for sure by September, but they've been asking all of us to report when we've been vaccinated, and right now all the student affairs team has been vaccinated at 100%. So now they're looking at bumping that timeline up, at least for student affairs, which would include admissions, to be much earlier. And some groups are starting to transition back in the next couple of weeks. So it's just a lot to think about and I don't know, I'm nervous about it, to be quite honest, I'm not gonna lie. So just trying to figure out the best way to keep everybody safe on our team. And like Adrian said, you have to think of that continuity plan as you're bringing so many people into campus. Even if they are in small groups, like Susan said, they're still going to congregate and be close to each other. So if somebody does come up sick, or even just a guest that we have, they're going to be our future students. And what if they go home sick because somebody else brought it? So there's just a lot of things to think about, and just trying to find some answers. So trying to find some ideas. So I appreciate the discussion. It's really very helpful.
Did everybody see my plan C? I'm looking around to see, okay, so if something goes down, who can I sub? Might be the security guard out front, but it'll get pretty desperate. And then when you're talking quarantine, it's up to our safety manager. So sometimes that's 10 days. Sometimes it's 14. It just really depends when you send the request in, per the interaction, how it happened, what time. We had one employee who was vaccinated for the second time and was in that 2-week stage, who just finished her quarantine of 14 days. And we're not in the office yet, but we haven't even gotten into the office and we're still dealing with it. So we built that in. I built that into my thought process. And that's another reason why, even though they say we might come back to 100% capacity, I'm only going to run 50. Because at 100% capacity, meaning everybody in the office, even with the doors shut, there's no way you can manage students in the space too.
Molly and Paula, we do have the poll that was requested. So if you'd like for us to launch that, we can do so now.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. It is 3 questions, getting at whether you are requiring proof of COVID vaccine for students, a second for faculty and staff, and the third for guests and visitors.
And before everyone responds, if you can, only one person per campus so that we can try to figure out what the actual numbers are rather than multiple people reporting on one school.
Can we clarify whether this is a current requirement or a requirement for the next academic year? Because that's
For the next
a different
academic
answer.
So when the option is don't know yet, is that the same as it's currently in discussion and not defined? Okay. Thanks.
I've seen a significant slow in responses, Jamie, so I don't know if you
I
want.
just have a question. It's okay if you don't want to disclose it, but I've been reading in the news because CSA has been very interested in this as well. If you're a school that is requiring it, I think I know that 2 of the 3 schools. Are you willing to just say who you are, or If not, that's okay.
Our dean for KCOM said that they're going to require it as part of the vaccination protocol for incoming students. And then for students that are going into clinical rotations, they have told the student body that they're expecting that will be a requirement to go into the clinical environment from this point forward. So
That's exactly the situation for us.
Who was that? Sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, that was Zia.
Oh, okay. At California.
CHSU. Yep.
yeah, and mine was for KCOM. SOMA has not yet made a decision in Arizona.
So is that then written in your health and technical standards document as well with the other immunization requirements? Or?
John, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, is that then written into your health and technical standards document along with all of your other immunization requirements?
Yeah, I believe it's being added to the immunization requirement list, which is part of the technical standards on entry.
Cool, thanks.
And John, not to put you on the spot, was Ohio the last school that said that it's required or no?
No.
Okay.
No, we're still in discussion. I had a question, and you know, maybe it's not for preclinical students so much, but maybe so, depending on early clinical contact. You know, has anybody heard, will your clinical affiliates start to drive some of this decision making? You know, I'll be curious. I think they're all trying to figure it out right now too. I mean, all of our third and fourth year folks are vaccinated. As I'm sure, you know, most, if not all of yours are too. But I'll be curious to see if our clinical affiliates might help us drive some of these decisions as it relates to preclinical students.
And John, I think the reason that they went ahead and required it for first year students coming in is because they do have clinical, I mean, they have the standardized patients with real people, and they're mostly elderly people from the community. They do go out. There are some mobile medical units that our students take part in within some pretty underserved and, you know, economically impoverished areas in the area. So I think that was the reason why our incoming students are also required to have it, because they're, even though it's maybe not a huge part of the curriculum from the very beginning, they're still doing a lot in the community, but also with each other, you know, with the labs, OMM lab, and with our human patient simulation lab. They're in very close quarters, anatomy lab, just in very close quarters with each other.
Great rationale. I'm all for it, really. We're encouraging our folks to all be vaccinated prior to, but we're not mandating as yet. So.
Andrew, if is there a mechanism for people who feel they need an exception, like for medical reasons or religious reasons? Because that's something that came up at our campus, and as why we said it's strongly recommended. Obviously, third and fourth year is different than first and second year, and also with faculty and staff.
Yeah, students have always been allowed to appeal for an exception based on those types of reasons, whether they have a medical reason or some other, you know, very valid reason for trying to come in without those vaccinations. And so those are sent in through an appeal process, and then they go through the various channels for approval.
And do you have a sense if, I mean, this might be too specific, but for right now, but you know, because you have those early clinical experiences and other things like that, if someone is not vaccinated, you know, and they have a legitimate reason, but will they still be able to participate the same as everybody else? You know, I mean, it sounds really harsh to single them out and so forth, but you know, if you have a lot of senior citizens who are standardized patients, they may have that expectation that nobody's going to come who isn't vaccinated.
Right. Yeah. And Bill, I don't have that answer, but kind of a complementary issue that we've been dealing with is staff that, you know, if there are staff, I mean, in Missouri, our student affairs staff is 100% vaccinated, but I'm going to be recruiting and hiring 2 new people this summer, and you know, there's always turnover. So what if you have a staff member that is not going to be vaccinated, but it's in their role to be doing the stuff that we do? So means, you know, very visible. So, you know, one of the things that somebody said is, well, we may have to just pull them from those kinds of activities because we don't want to, you know, have an undue exposure. But I brought up the counterpoint, well, that's not really fair to the rest of the staff. So what do you do with those staff members that either are currently here or they get here and they refuse to be vaccinated? You know, we can't mandate for staff, from what I understand, that they be vaccinated. We just can strongly encourage it. But, you know, what do you do with those staff members that now they presumably, you know, need to be pulled from big events that we might, you know, have in the future, visit events? Maybe we have an accepted student day or a future, you know, pre-accept student day. But now they can't technically be part of that because they're not vaccinated. And so, yeah, those are the questions that we have no answers for. And nobody really has a good answer that I'm very happy about at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a good answer, but our answer seems to be if someone has a legitimate reason as a staff person, we're going to accommodate their request or their needs. You know, I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying that, you know, it's not going to cause, you know, some issues and so forth, but we feel that we need to do that. The trick is, how do you know without requiring people to answer the question, how do you know? And I think the only way is to ask them if they need any kind of accommodations, or can they just come in and so forth. So when they request to be at home or something like that, then we're going to accommodate what seems to be reasonable with that individual.
So here at TUC, we don't have a requirement in place right now, but I've alerted my staff that while the vaccination currently is considered optional, though recommended, I envision a time when it becomes mandatory for all staff and faculty. It's certainly going to become mandatory for all students, just like every other vaccination that we have. So I don't see that as being something that's different at some point in the future. But I think until the vaccine is widely available and you know, everything else is in place, it's going to probably still be recommended.
I don't know how you can mandate that everybody has a vaccination, because if someone has is known to have a severe reaction to a component of the Pfizer or whatever it is, then they could not, because they could die from it. They could put their life in danger. So that person will, you know, should not be vaccinated.
No,
So how do you then say everybody needs to be vaccinated?
No, there would be there would be exceptions for medical reasons. But and again, I say this not being the person that is going to draft nor approve that policy, but the other vaccination policies we've had make clear exceptions for medical reasons.
Yeah, and we've tentatively spoken about not having exceptions for religious reasons for students, but we would for faculty and staff. But the definition of religious exceptions would not include someone's philosophical opposition to vaccinations in general. It has to be a true religious one. And again, you know, I don't think we've tested that yet, so I don't know what that's going to look like. But there was a specific discussion about not allowing someone to say, I'm just against vaccines in general, because, you know, there are some people that, you know, that might, feel that would be acceptable.
Yeah, we've had some folks over the years, this is in the early days pre-COVID, when some students were reluctant to get maybe influenza shot or some of the other required immunizations. And I kind of get back to my earlier comment that, you know, our clinical affiliates want everybody fully vaccinated. And so we had to have a couple of folks sign a waiver saying that, okay, but you may have difficulty being placed into your clinical, you know, your clerkship experience with our partners. And we had to do some scrambling, and it was really kind of, fortunately, wasn't our work, but on our ClinEd to try and find, okay, which one of our clinical campuses or partners would be willing to take that student. But that student, we had them sign that waiver because it was a roll of the dice, because there could have been a situation where they didn't have opportunity to progress into their clerkship because of those requirements. And you want them to be fully aware and sign off on that. Say accumulate 2 years of indebtedness and
Yeah, and Susan, I completely understand when there's somebody who has a very valid medical reason for not being vaccinated. You know, the hardship sometimes will come in though, is if you have a staff member whose role is to be front and center at the front of all these different events that you have, and now they can't do it because they're not vaccinated or not able to be vaccinated, then somebody else has to add that to their job description. So, you know, I think sometimes maybe these job descriptions in the future might be a little bit more fluid than what they are. I mean, they're pretty fluid right now. We kind of know how to do everything in our departments, but and pitch in wherever. But in terms of whose main responsibility, if that was that person's main responsibility to lead these open house events or whatever it might be, and now they can't do that because they're not vaccinated, that's just one of these ethical dilemmas of what do you do? How do you do that without creating an undue hardship on other people, and then just put them in a back office, not able to have contact with anybody? So yeah, I don't know. I keep mulling these things over and over in my head, trying to figure out answers. And I was hoping maybe glean some knowledge from you guys.
Maybe that goes to saying when you try to put the match the person with the job description, and it changes. They do change through the year. You know, I'm changing them constantly, practically, because different things that we're doing now. So maybe that's part of the right fit for the person, and maybe that's something we're going to be considering in the future as these other strains come up. But that might be something that we need to start taking into consideration more than we have in the past. Are some of our students, and I'm wondering if any of your students have been doing virtual rotations, and some of them have been doing in-person rotations. And I don't know if that plays into this issue at all. And I was wondering if any of your students have been doing those.
We certainly get asked about it a lot, and how we're going to view clinical shadowing that's been virtual, or just some of these virtual experiences that they're signing up for. What we've been telling students, pre-med students, is to go ahead and list it on their application, but to be very clear that this was a virtual experience, and that we're really not 100% sure how we're going to count it, but it's probably not going to be given, I know it's not going to be given the same weight as in person. But at least what we're going to see is that they're continuing to try to gain knowledge about the field. So that's better than nothing.
No, I mean clinical rotations, actually clinical.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Third and fourth year clinical rotations.
Okay.
And I don't know, I haven't had opportunity to discuss them in depth, but in the huddles that our dean has regularly, she talks about some of our students meeting some of the component of a rotation virtually. And that now that they're going to, as things are loosening up a little bit in California, to meet the other requirements of them. So I was just wondering if any of your colleges had some component of the rotation virtual.
We had a situation in Ohio, but this is right when and we're back, everybody's back on the floors right now and doing, inpatient care. But when the pandemic broke and, they yanked all our third and fourth years off, and I'm guessing, a number of your institutions maybe did something similar. We developed a 2+2 rotation. And so, for instance, let's say pediatrics, you have the first 2 weeks would be all kind of didactic learning, modules, a bunch of no inpatient care. And then they would take their COMAO after that first 2 weeks. And then the other 2 weeks, which would be the in-person, the clinical or inpatient clinical experience, that was staggered out once we were able to get the green light and get our students back on the floors. But we don't do any virtual rotations right now per se. That was just kind of a stopgap measure to when our folks were pulled off the floors. But it worked well.
It sounds like that was something that she was referring to also. I didn't know much about it, but that sounds about the same.
Could I go back to Andrea's question, where you were saying, you were hoping to glean some things? What I actually felt like involving my leadership team to help with some of the discussions. And then also I have to speak truth to power when I'm talking to the president. Because I don't know about you guys, but back in the day when grandma would talk to me, you know, she'd have these, what she called come to Jesus meetings. And this is when she's putting it out there about how you're going to behave. And I only had one of those and I learned really quickly. I didn't want to have any more. And I did not want to come to Jesus. It's not the opening of the church. But I think you have to make sure you've got some advocates on your side. So if they tell us, like when for the leadership, the executive team, there was no conversation about whether I was going to get the vaccine. He didn't ask me, well, what do you think? Are you going to get the vaccine, Adrian? They said, you know, we're a school of medicine. We follow the science. And, you know, what I want you to do when you go back to your staff is to talk about the benefits of the vaccine and, you know, just to make sure people feel comfortable. So we hosted a number of vaccine events. My whole entire team knows I lost my brother to COVID. And we've had some deaths on our own, you know, other team members or other team members have gotten COVID. I have some young ones who are still going to be one of the long haulers. They don't have taste and smell. So I'm talking about these things openly with the president that we're still recovering. And at one time, one of our smaller campuses was shut down because we thought we had an exposure. So we learned to move the resources from one campus to the next, right? Phones, help with everything. So I think you have to open up those conversations. And so when they start telling us how we're going to do it, I decided for the team that we should not wait until the last minute to come up with ideas because we need to put it up, like we know what we need to do. And here's where we're having some concerns. And I was like, well, you know, today, what do we want to talk about? So I want to tell you, I've got this going on and I'm concerned about it. So I saw Steve's answer. I think that's really honest. And I have said that same thing myself. Thank you, William. But I said that we have to really be thoughtful about it. So when we are upskilling our job descriptions and when we're talking about leadership, you have to prepare for that. So when we're talking about, we say people aren't going to like it. I don't like it, you know, but these are the things that we have to do to kind of protect the business. So first there's the business, but then we're the people that run the business. So I don't know if you saw my note in the chat, which was we are the boots on the ground and the cavalry. So nobody's coming to rescue you. So that's what my plan C is. Like, who else am I going to pick up? Am I going to grab somebody from financial aid, student affairs? And I did. So when they told us that we were going to have pharmacy back on campus before we'd actually even experimented with it, I was like, okay, we need to tell people because we did have one of our executives who has COVID and was going to be in the building. And that was my first crisis. I was like, oh my, we can't be bringing people into his building. So we need to make sure he's either aware and not there. So now we've created like a little group and we told them which day. So they confirmed that this is the day. So everybody's aware of when our events are now for this one particular school before we open it up. And then from that, we're going to use that experience to determine what we do on each campus with the same level of openness about it, because otherwise it's just not being thoughtful. Like you said, we've taken all the time to protect ourselves, current students, faculty and staff. And I can't say that every time when I mention something, it's like, oh no, you can handle that. I just say, well, no, it's not just about handling it. It's about making sure that the team knows that you heard what they said. So I keep popping in, they're probably sick of me already, but I keep popping in and just saying like, how are you feeling? I know you have these concerns and really, you know, being with them in the moment to address what those concerns are. So they made me the poster child for the vaccines. And, you know, while I was getting my first shot, they took a picture and I just told the team, I'm not going to have you do something that I'm not going to do. So I'm trying to lead by example, but I'm equally as concerned. And so when I was talking about business continuity, so when we started having the issues that we had initially, I was telling the team, I said, because you know how you get that first, like, oh my God, no, you just think like the worst case scenario every time you hear about somebody getting COVID. I was like, okay, we got to fix ourselves because we're not going to survive it. And it's like, okay, now what do we do next? And so inside the business continuity is the idea of what are we going to do if someone has it or multiple people get it? And what are we going to do with the resources? And the team has really stepped up and shifted and, you know, managed what they need to manage, quarantined how we need to quarantine. We all are using the Campus Clear app, reporting to the rapid response team and then getting feedback about how much time you need off and then really checking in with people. And so we've had some pretty serious situations where some people have even been kind of separated from their family and are trying to deal with it on their own. And then also trying to work their job. You're like, okay, come on, log off. Nobody, and we're utilizing under COVID the requirements where you don't have to use their sick leave. And then I think those kinds of investments will go far because the team will trust that you are putting their safety first. And I think that's just what we have to keep doing, but it is because, you know, if you isolate somebody, everybody could say, I need to be isolated. And then we still have to try to do our job. So when I go into the president, I bring him these questions and I say, okay, so how are you dealing with us like that, right? And so my leadership team's already gotten direction that when they go to campus, they have to show up. And so what I do when I get into the office, mask on, I just go peek my head in. I was like, hi, Jay, Dr. J, I'm on campus today, just so you can see I'm in the building because they believe that the campus is central. And so we're gonna have to take turns shifting, making sure they know that we're open and working, but at the same time, we're taking care to protect people. And then I've also been asked to work directly with the safety and facility folks as well. And that's what I'm gonna do. But I think it serves you well to not try to shoulder it by yourself. There's always been some little coalitions behind the scenes. A couple offices have called and said, well, are y'all gonna work from home? And I was like, yeah, some of us are gonna work from home. I said, and stop calling it that. We're gonna work from anywhere. And then just mix it up because they wanna try to stay remote and they're trying to see what everybody else is doing. And we can't run our business like that. So not the way they're wanting, because every time one of us opens, then the spike goes up in the, okay, what's the competition doing? And so it starts all over again. So anyway, I was just throwing that out there for support because I don't really have any more answers. I'm just trying to make sure I just keep everybody posted about what this means. Every time you tell me that we got to do this, here's where there's going to be an impact to our cost, or we need to do things like that.
All right, so I don't think we heard about the poll results yet, did we?
Can you pull those back up, Erin?
Yes, I believe I'm sharing them now.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, did I miss this? Was this out here already?
No,
It was? Oh,
I don't think we shared them yet, right?
okay, good. I'm like, how did I miss this? It's dead center in the middle of my screen. I don't know about everybody else, but.
Yep, so you've got 1, 2, and when you're ready for me to scroll down to 3, I'm happy to do that.
Just so
Everybody
you know,
good?
we can scroll on our own.
Oh, great.
Oh, yes, good. So it looks like most of it is still in discussion at most campuses. I don't think that's probably a surprise. Anybody see anything surprising in this poll?
Yeah, I kind of think it's interesting about the visitors that a lot of people have already decided that it's not going to be required. I didn't expect that.
I also think it's strange that you're going to require the COVID vaccine for students, but not necessarily faculty and staff. I understand absolutely religious and medical reasons, and maybe that's where the lines got crossed, but that's a little question.
Jamie, they mentioned to us on our campus that at this time, we're not going to require it of faculty and staff because it could be a legal issue and might be a HIPAA issue. And we're kind of looking into that and not sure of it. And our lawyer wasn't sure, so they felt that it was better to be safe than sorry related to, faculty.
Were you one of the schools that said your requirement for your students?
Actually, Megan responded, so I don't know if she responded that way, but we will eventually require it of our students.
I said strongly recommend.
Okay. So we're strongly recommending it right now, but I know we'll require it of students, but I don't know if we'll get to the point of requiring it for faculty and staff.
So basically what you're seeing by the results of this poll is there's a bunch of definite maybes. I mean, the bottom line is that it's all uncharted territory. Nobody knows exactly what they should be doing. Everybody has an opinion. And to be honest, until the leadership that's probably not us in most cases makes those decisions, we're all like, who knows? We're somewhere between hiding in a hole in the ground for the next year and coming out and enjoying the sunshine.
Steve, we were hoping that you'd make the decision, and then if there are any lawsuits, that you would have the lawsuits, and we'd be able to learn from you.
Hey, they don't give me that kind of power, nor do they give me that kind of money. But Bill, I heard you've got a higher rank than me. And so, I would defer to your decision-making prowess and financial obligations for the future.
Okay, well.
It's interesting to think about just like peer institutions, whether it's within this group, all the colleges of osteopathic medicine, the medical school community, the New York State medical school community, the New York State higher education community. There's all these different communities and what everybody's going to do and who do you align with when you're making your decisions. I'm sure all of that is happening at levels that I'm not privy to.
Yeah, we're all in a different, it's such a weird, you know what, I'm going to turn on my camera to make Jamie happy. We're all in a weird boat here, right? Because as Adrian said, we're medical schools. We need to follow the science. And what that generally gets translated into is for our students and faculty who are out there meeting the public in clinical settings, the science says vaccinate, 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 you don't have a choice. For staff and faculty, however, that pendulum swings a little bit. I believe our institution is ultimately going to require the vaccination. I'm clearly getting it. But it's one of those things of how far do you push? How much do you require? Being in California, there's all of that personal freedom stuff that comes into play, and any number of lawyers across the country who are probably just itching to have these cases go to court so they can, get their names in the headlines for any number of things. It's just a weird thing. So what you hope to do is instill a sense of if not responsibility, then concern amongst the faculty and staff that, hey, you really should get this vaccine. Because if everybody chooses to get it, then you don't have to go the requirement route, and it's much easier. But boy, it's a minefield, just like everything else with COVID. We've now gotten a handle on certain things, but the world has not come to an end, and neither have the options. So it's just very difficult. And I, for one, I'm really happy I'm not in the group that has to make the decision, but I will enforce whatever decision is given to me, because that's my job.
It's a multifaceted issue. Patients to consider, hospitals to consider, just safety for people that are in one area on campus. So there's so many areas, like you say, local, county, local laws, requirements, all of that. There's just so much. And this has not occurred in many, many years. So everybody's just trying to find a way through it. And you're right. I think the colleges are building their decisions on the science. And having to come to conclusions for so many different groups that work in different areas. We see the public a lot. We have walk-ins on our campus. We give tours on our campuses. Our students are seeing patients. that we have standardized patients. There's so many different facets to that. So I really take my hat off to those people that are making the decisions and are trying to make the best decisions for all of us.
Yeah, and this also plays into just with interview days. You know, if they're in person, then we're subjecting not just the candidates, but our staff and faculty to one-on-one. We do a lot of one-on-one interviews. And so, you know, they're in a room by themselves. Yes, we can try to social distance them, but these interview rooms are not very large. You know, you have your general presentations and those are the whole group. So putting them, trying to find space on campus to fit them all in, but then social distancing the whole group throughout the day. And then the question is okay, so what if we say that to do an in-person interview, which we haven't decided what kind we're doing yet, but to do an in-person, you have to be vaccinated. But then what if somebody shows up and they're not vaccinated? So they've just spent $1,000 to get to our campus on travel expenses and hotels and whatever. And now they're not vaccinated. So, I mean, it's just dilemma after dilemma after dilemma, just trying to sort through the numerous possibilities.
Consider back when this started, we were doing at Comp, we were doing our last interviews. Donna's last interview day had to be virtual, and they were scrambling to get everything ready. We had our interview day, and the caution was don't shake hands. We've got the hand sanitizers all over. Try to distance yourself. And for those of you that conduct interviews that aren't worth interviewees, what do? You shake their hand. What do? You talk to them. You welcome them to the campus. I like to go and chit chat with each of the different interviewees that we have. And so here I have my hands, literally, this is what I did. I had my hands in a fist and I wore something with pockets. And I just kept my hands in the pockets so that I wasn't reaching out to them and shaking hands, which is what I normally do. It's really difficult when you have to, when you're inviting someone to campus, they're your guests on campus, and yet you have to distance yourself and you're handing out hand sanitizer. It was really difficult. And I think that will be some of the things that we'll worry about when we go back to campus. But this year, we're going to be doing virtual interviews. Our dean has decided that, and probably have campus days for the people that are admitted. But it is really tough to have those precautions and keep people 6 feet apart when you're interviewing a group of students that you're talking to. Think about talking to somebody and standing 6 feet apart. Some of us may be used to it already, but it was really difficult.
Whatever your requirements are, Andrea, the key will just be communicating those very clearly to applicants, especially if you're going to bring somebody on campus. And to answer your specific question, what they spend, where they come from, doesn't matter. If they don't follow the requirements, they aren't eligible. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but I guarantee you, if it happens to them once, it won't happen to them again. They, it's tough, and that's the thing too. You can't. You just have to make your own policy and then abide by it.
Well, Steve, then the other question is, especially if you're talking about visitors, either for interview day or for any other days, are you going to require them to show proof, or do they just tell you that they were vaccinated? Do they have to show their CDC card, or are we just going to take their word for it? And some people, there's also a difference between vaccinated and fully vaccinated if you have two parts and the 2-week time frame. So I mean, you're right. You have to be very specific about what it is that you're requiring, because it could be interpreted differently, and you don't know for sure if someone, I mean, if you don't have proof, I guess, you have to take their word for it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I would also say it's something that strikes me as concerning. Whether it's interviews or most probably just visitors that come to campus. If somebody comes to the campus and they're not vaccinated, you're already exposed. So there's no, if they're the atypical carrier or non-symptomatic carrier, that casual contact when they come to the campus, even to be told, hey, you can't go on the tour because you're not vaccinated, whoever's having that conversation, they're already potentially exposed. It's a very difficult situation. I do not pretend to have any answers at all, really. That's for the physicians above my head that, well, let me say, I'm not a physician. That's for the physicians to decide and make those policies. It's my responsibility to enforce those policies and try and guide if I think something's problematic from an admissions perspective, which I certainly would do. Yeah, I don't know.
And for me, all of my staff except one who had COVID is being vaccinated now, and the rest of us have. But that doesn't mean we're not going to get sick. That doesn't mean that at all. And who am I going to? And if the staff says, you know, I really am worried. I don't want really. Do I need to be exposed to this? We have a group of 10 people coming on campus or 15 people coming on campus. What do I say to a staff person that's reluctant to go out and give that to her and talk to them because they're concerned about it?
Yeah, and that point, that's my prior comment, and I hope I don't have to have this conversation. I really do, but it's at that point where, as supervisors, as managers, as representatives of the institution, that's an uncomfortable conversation to have. If you have an employee who's in essence telling you, "I do not feel comfortable doing my job," then, you know, I think what comes into play there is, well, how long is this expected to last? If there's a light at the end of the tunnel, really, then perhaps you can arrange things so somebody else can pick up that load. But if you can't, the difficult decision is, do you need to go a different direction with a different employee? And it absolutely sucks. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely sucks. I have two staff people right now who have not taken advantage of the university's offering of vaccinations. For medical reasons, one for other reasons. I'll just put in who she thinks she's indestructible. The latter has indicated that if the university requires the vaccination, she'll get it. The former has medical issues. You know, right now we're able to accommodate because we're virtual. We're not doing in-person stuff. But at some point, yeah, again, the very, very difficult decision, involve HR, involve your supervisor. You know, it's you can be compassionate, but at the same time be realistic with somebody and say this is the job, and it sucks. It does. Can I say it sucks? I guess it's too late now. Okay.
All right. Have we hit that awkward pause? Or are we just taking a deep breath?
I thought I'd been muted.
Not yet.
I'd like to have some of my other team members to speak up about what they think as well, because we're developing some young leaders, and this is the times when we're having these tough conversations, you know, and it'd just be good to hear some feedback, because we're having the conversations. I think it's important for us as leaders to not shy away from the difficult conversations, because we would be the ones, along with our team members, that have to solve how we're going to still run the business. And I don't know I guess they're too afraid. Is anybody afraid? Don't be afraid. But I would be encouraging them to talk about how they're turning it over as well. And I'm really asking them to open conversation with one another, and then we're just flexing wherever we can. Anybody on my team want to step up?
I can share a little bit. I can share a little bit. From the Oregon campus, because we are so small, there's 2 of us in admissions, and Susan's team will back us up if we need it. But what we did, other departments stepped up, and we had the discussion about, on the events that we have to have, if someone can't do it, who will fill in. So we have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C already in place. If I'm sick and can't be there, there's 2 backups for me. If my admissions coordinator can't be there, we have backups for her. So we've kind of sat down and discussed what would happen if someone for COVID reasons cannot be there. But the expectation from the entire campus is as they can receive a vaccination, they will. And that those people who, because in Oregon, it's hard to get the vaccine. It's only 20% of the population is vaccinated because of lack of availability of the vaccine in the rural areas. So everyone is trying to get the vaccine. But if we have a situation where we have a vaccinated person versus an unvaccinated person, we're going to use the vaccinated person first until we can get everyone vaccinated. And while the school has been approved as a vaccination site, we have no vaccine to share. So we're kind of, we had to look at things, and we did this in February, sat down and did our plan as to why we would make a change, what were the reasons behind it, and then just lined everything out so everyone knows what's going on. The communication is key to make sure that our backup people know what we have planned so that they can step up, and they have when they were needed. We've never had a situation where we didn't have virtual events or rare times where we needed to be on campus that someone wasn't there.
I think Adrian wanted me to comment on what I've been doing with my team. And sorry, I didn't answer right away. I was trying to grab my salad. These no bio breaks is killing me today. You know, so what I did was I opened up the floor for the staff that report to me to talk about their anxieties, and some of them were happy to share in you know, open forum, and others talked to me on the side, but we all kind of shared our experiences across the board. And then what we did was we dove into, well, what would it look like if we were coming back, and if we were required to be back 1 day a week or 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And we literally had a grid, and we started saying, okay, what would work for you? What days would you want to come in? What days are you already coming in? Would you want that to change? Would you want to do a half day in? And we color coded it and just, you know, let everybody kind of dive in. And it really worked out. People agreed that they wanted to be on site certain days together because they're on projects together, and they were like, oh, you know, we want to be on site, you know, at least 1 day a week together so that we can work on that project in person as opposed to online. And you know, I was afraid to go about it because I wasn't sure of how everybody felt on the team about where they were with getting vaccinated and just being back. One of them's a new mom, and but it was a really great conversation. I think people appreciated being able to share their anxieties, and some of them, it's their excitement. They were like itching to get back. You know, everybody's different. And I think just making sure that the team, you know, hears what the others are thinking and appreciates what they're thinking, whether or not they agree or not. You know, I think it's important that you understand what your team individually, what each of them is you know, where they are with it, and that way the others can support them, even if they don't agree or if they're on different ends of the spectrum. So I think the open conversation is key, and that really helped because other, you know, groups that didn't do that were having a little bit more trouble. And maybe it was because there was nobody super anxious. Maybe I got lucky that way. But I think that, you know, asking them and not kind of pushing them any direction, and just asking questions about how they were doing. The other thing is that I shared my experience. You know, I have a heart condition, so I was like, well, I'm really scared to get COVID. I didn't go anywhere for months. And so when they, you know, them caring about me, were like, well, you know, you shouldn't go in. And I'm like, no, I'm going in. This is why I'm going in. And this is why I'm getting vaccinated. So, you know, I think that transparency is absolutely imperative in this process because everybody's scared and everybody's got their own fears and their own anxieties and their own ways of dealing with it.
Thank you, Carrie.
Well, I think our leadership on our campus, and this would be for both campuses, has decided that some people can work permanently off campus. We're always looking for space and room, so that's going to free up some room. HR has already developed policies and procedures for employees permanently to work off campus. To work off campus in any state in the United States. We have one of our team lives in Connecticut. So he's on our team. We did have somebody that was in Croatia when this all happened, and she was there working from there with us. But they did say, I guess, due to HR rules and things, that we cannot have someone working on our team permanently that lives outside of the United States. So they sort of turned a corner and realized that some people do not ever have to be on campus, and they can do their jobs effectively, and their job is not bothered by it. So that's kind of the mindset that our leadership, our university leadership has when bringing people back to campus. So it kind of gives us some freedom because my staff has different responsibilities, personal responsibilities too. One can't wait to get back to campus. Another one would have to figure out how, after all this is happening, how they're going to be able to be back at campus, whether it's part-time or whatever. But our leadership at the university has developed this concept that we could have permanently employees that were permanently on campus, even work out from out of state.
I'm just having this thought right now that my team is always very lean. So I have these concerns before COVID. So I call it a house of cards, maternity leave, and man, it's tough because we're tiny for what we do. And so my thought is, oh my God, I do have a maternity leave coming up. What if somebody gets COVID, right? But I'm coming to you guys. So just get ready. That's my backup plan. All right, Miss Paula, I am handing the baton to you to make some decisions here on what we're doing next, or if we're doing anything today.
Well, the conversation's been great. It's always great. I'm listening because I learn a lot more when I listen versus give a lot of input. And I know my team is here too, and probably have lots of opinions about what they've heard because we're going through very similar challenges. We don't really know a lot about what's going on. I just left a meeting before this one with our dean, who described his office as being full of all his assistants because he can't run a big operation without staff. And then some of the deans who are on the call are looking at him like, okay, but how are we we can't bring our staff back. Are you kidding me? How are we going to do this? And so the discussions are still going on and being had. And so similar to what I think Carrie said, we've talked to the team members, and they're on here too. They're very quiet. Janine Kusick, our director, Janine Holland's here, and Nigel. They're amazing. We lost a staff member. We're replacing a person. Janine Kusick is spearheading the search committee, so it's kind of, we're in the office 2 days out of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's not determined by us. It's determined by an executive assistant who is managing academic affairs, of which we're a part. And so we're flexible within our department. So if, a team member has an issue and they can't make it, I tell folks, listen, you got to take care of yourself first. So that's your priority. We'll work it out. So, and I'm typically in the office on the days that we have a shortfall, and I'm there, and they're throughout the week sometimes too. And so, we're just doing the best we can. What we have a very small team as well. So this information is really great insight, because I think we're going to probably go back, and I'm curious as to how they feel about what you've shared with regard to some of your uncertainties. And then, for those of you who are certain about what you're doing, what it is that we can implement, if at all possible, because these discussions, again, you've got like a lot of really great insight. I don't necessarily have anything else, Molly. I do want to, because I'm going to make sure Ellie's here, and I am remiss if I did not, because me and my big mouth, I think I spoke to Molly at length, maybe a little less than a week ago. But Ellie Matthews and I'll tell you, Nigel James is on the call. She's also my hero because I talk to Nigel about Ellie and her amazing expertise when it comes to recruitment and all. And I had the privilege of spending time with her as the secretary this year. And we had great, and I mean it, really enriching conversations. So I want to make sure that, you all know that Ellie has been such an integral part of this whole COMAO leadership team. And she's just been amazing. And I'm grateful to you because you are our hero. And so I just want to make sure that Nigel knows that Nigel and I are probably meeting later on today. And so I've always talked to him about, have you seen Ellie's video? Ellie's doing this, and Ellie's doing that. So she's been amazing. And thank you so much. And thank you to Jamie and Jessica and Aaron. ACOM has got great leaders. And so, we've been doing this for a while. And some of us know, that there were great leaders, okay leaders, I'll leave it at that. And now we've got great leaders. So it is really a privilege to work with them as well. So I wanted to throw that out there. I have nothing else other than I'm, looking forward to, the great things that ACOM and COMAO are going to do in the coming year, without question. Absolutely. Molly, you're a tough act to follow, but similar to what Adrian said, which, you guys who know me know that I and the team that I work with, know I'm a collaborator. So nobody works alone. There is no I in team. There were, how many people? 42. There were 44, I think earlier. There were 42 people on this meeting. And so that many and more are an integral part and are going to be contributing to what happens with these, with COMAO in the next year. So, I'm just grateful to you. Great conversation. I've taken tons of notes, and thank you. So Molly, I'll turn it back over to you.
Could I just add, I just want to say that on behalf of those of us who've held previous leadership positions with COMAO and have dealt with our own individual issues during our years, thank you, all of you, for leading things this time. It's been said before, and I'll say it again. You faced things that none of us would have wanted to, nor have we faced in the past in our leadership roles, both from ACOM and from COMAO. Thank you so much for your leadership, for your direction. Those, to some extent, COMAO leadership is a thankless job. There's no additional pay, all kinds of additional headaches, and whiners like me that complain. So, again, thank you all. We appreciate what you've done, and we look forward to the next year with the new team.
Awesome. And, when I say that I'm open and available, I also put that same invitation out there for Ellie, as I'm sure that she would be happy to assist as things come up as well. Ellie, did you want to say anything before we go? Because y'all might not know this, but she bailed me out on several occasions. So she's a good partner. I'm just saying.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all the support that everybody has shown us as the team to lead COMAO for this year. It's been a fun ride, and it's been very, very fun to learn from such strong mentors and such strong women and such strong leaders. So I'm excited for Courtney to take the place and passing the baton. And again, if any of you need anything, I'm always willing to help. I'm always willing to be open and chat with you. So thank you, everyone.
All right. So ACOM team, any parting thoughts? There are a few follow-ups in the chat. So
Be sure to send out a very lengthy email with all of the follow-up that we have to do for you all. And I know I've said this, but from the bottom of my heart, and I know that I speak for Aaron and Jessica, we're going to miss you, Ellie. We're going to miss you, Molly. But we're very excited for the new team. And please know that I still have your cell phone numbers, and I will still text you and call you. I'll try not to do it after hours because Adrian's reminded us that we actually still only work, between 8 and 6, sometimes a little less. So I'll try not to do that, but we really appreciate the guidance you give us is so helpful. And I think Courtney said it really well, is, the ability for you guys to both compete and cooperate is amazing. And so we hope to continue doing that and uniting you all, and you all uniting each other into the future. So again, thank you. And we will we'll send lots of follow-up that you may or may not read, but we'll make sure we get that to you within the next week or so.
All right. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. And thank you very much. These are three great days. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
Be well, everyone.